A lot on the plate for the Roundtable today. We've already started behind the scenes. First, some introductions. Marc Caputo is national political reporter at The Messenger, a not-so-new now nationwide publication. Loreal Arscott chairs the Miami-Dade Independent Civilian Panel and is past president of both the Wilkie D. Ferguson Bar and Gwen Cherry Black Women Lawyers Association. Tom Hudson is senior economics editor and special correspondent with our friends at WLRN. Kevin Cooper is vice chair of the Republican Party of Miami-Dade. All veterans of the Roundtable now. Welcome aboard. Welcome back.
Thank you for having us.
Of course. So you were able to hear the last segment. You are an ace political reporter, but you're also the husband of a teacher. So you get the first question. Erin is going to be on the Roundtable one of these days.
I don't think she'll want to do it.
You're intimately involved in the Miami-Dade school system in some respects. What's the perspective of the families, teachers about this?
I mean, just from talking to my kids and talking to my wife, this is a debate that they're having on the school board and in Tallahassee that no one is really talking about in the classroom. I mean, my kids haven't been taught how to be gay or trans or bisexual for the whole time they've been there. My oldest daughter's now at FSU. She's a junior, right? So that didn't happen the whole time she was in public school. My other kids who were respectively in middle school and high school, that hasn't happened. And my wife, the teacher, has not taught anyone, instructed them on LGBT-related things.
You know, you bring up what the buzzword that we hear is indoctrination, and that's been used a lot in Tallahassee during the passage of the parental rights laws. Kevin, my Republican on the panel today, you know, you hear that it's not really part of the. We've been to public school. I don't remember that either. But now you heard Roberto Alonso talk about it's you know, COVID. People are very engaged. Parents are very engaged. Is this a necessary thing?
Look, what this proposal does is it's trying to transfer what was once a fight in the State House to now to the local level. And I believe that this is a proposal that hasn't been fully fleshed out because...
When you talk about proposal not fleshed out, which...
Because it doesn't have any associated curriculum with it. So it places teachers in the impossible position of having to teach a topic that is very sensitive without any corresponding educational material on it. And so I think this is something that's very, very sensitive to a lot of people, to both teachers and to students who are LGBTQ. And it has to be done in a way that is in a complete package that is able to be taught.
You know, one of the things that I thought was very noticeable if you watch the public outcry about it is that there are groups very involved with it and with a big platform for it that really don't even have kids in public schools. What does that tell you?
So that tells me that the boisterous minority just wants to be heard. So what's interesting
is that a bad thing?
In our democracy, it's not a bad thing. What becomes problematic is when they attempt to overpower the will of the majority. So what we found interesting with School Board Member Alonso's comments was that he heard from the parents, his constituents that were parents. Dr. Dorothy Bendross-Mendengal stated that she changed her position because she heard from the students. So, you know, your kids might not be talking about it. We're definitely not being taught how to be gay in school. But the children who voiced their concerns to Dr. Bendross-Mendengal stated that they wanted some type of recognition. There is no curriculum involved. So there is no indoctrination. That's the red herring.
And there's no mandate to teach anything regarding this recognition of a month of a class of people. I think the other piece that's important here to your original question is that we're all engaged with public schools, regardless if we have kids in them like I do, we have family members who may work there. The entire community is interested and has a stake in public schools. But you take a look at this debate, it happened at a moment in the same meeting where the school board, the largest school district in Florida, one of the top 3 largest school districts in the nation, with a multi-billion-dollar budget, spent less time talking about spending billions of dollars than it did talking about a recognition of a month.
I heard it coming.
No, I was just saying, I wanted to kind of pull back the lens to Tallahassee, which is where this began. And I think what a lot of people don't understand is just the evolution of this and what it says about kind of the dysfunctional political system we have and the media's inability to cover it. And so lawmakers came up with this idea, you shouldn't teach kids in K through 3 sexual orientation and gender identity. Well, it wasn't being taught.
It wasn't being taught.
Right.
So Republicans went to ban something that wasn't being taught. And yes, I understand maybe there's something on TikTok. someone might have seen. And then Democrats jumped up and like, how dare you? So their reaction on the Democratic side is as if it was being taught. And so suddenly we're covering this derivative thing that's not really happening. And it's occupying all of our attention.
A solution to this would be for the Department of Education to speak with clarity regarding a public school district in Florida recognizing LGBTQ plus month if they wanted to. But there's been no clarity from the Department of Education regarding such recognition.
Do you think that the vagueness, not only of this particular issue, but the vagueness of the actual law is what really is the chilling effect to what could be a very normal school day?
Exactly. So they made an issue out of a non-issue, right? That's the premise of that. The chilling effect is you put shackles upon the teachers as to what they can and cannot discuss. I mean, let's face it, our kids are learning about sexual orientation on TikTok and on any other channel that they tone into these days.
But neither the law nor this particular month has anything to do with what teachers can or can't discuss. There's,
Discuss is different from instruct. Remember
100%.
that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I want to mention though, you said TikTok, and we're all talking about these things that are outside of school, right? And so there is also a place for parents to discuss these issues with their children, and for the community to discuss these issues with their children outside of the school. And so we have to also be cognizant of that as well, that there is a place for these types of discussions, and it is also outside of the school as well.
I'm sorry, Glenna. As a parent, I would prefer for my children to have an informed, educated conversation with their teachers, highlighting the notables in the LGBTQ community versus learning skeptical information, fake news on TikTok and other sources.
But are you sure what your teachers are telling your students is what you'd like your teachers to be telling your
I
students?
appreciate, the only part of the parental act that I appreciate is that the subject matter has to be cleared by the parents first. So I appreciate having the parents' involvement to making us aware of what the curriculum is, but that's back to your point. If it was a clear curriculum, then the parents would be informed and we would be able to voice our informed concerns at that time.
I just want to mention one thing because we're talking here about curriculum, parental choice. None of that was in this proposal at the school board. There was no curriculum to go along with it. There was no ability to instruct it.
Right, and so isn't that an argument for it would be fine because there's no curriculum and so it comports with the law?
Well, I think if somebody has a proposal, they should give you the entire proposal. I think if someone is saying this should be brought into the schools, how are you going to teach it? How are you going to discuss it? How is this item going to be explained to students when students ask, what is LGBTQ History Month? I think there needs to be an explanation, there needs to be curriculum along with it, and that as a package can be discussed at the school board. But just throwing this out as a kind of as an idea without giving a full instruction, teachers are very concerned about this because they are not given the necessary material to go and instruct this topic in the classroom.
I think that begets another situation, right? If a school district or school board is going to pass any kind of proclamation recognition for anything, are you saying as due course that proclamation needs to come with instruction?
It should. It should. I believe that it absolutely should. Because how
Otherwise,
would you
don't recognize it.
Well, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying don't recognize it, but I say when you're going to recognize something, it has to be done complete recognition. Not every teacher is trained in every single topic that they're teaching, so it's good to have instructional material to go along with it. It's good to have coursework that they can use to explain this topic. These are very sensitive topics.
Kevin, when you write that bill that you're taking to the legislature, can we preview it right here?
That would be great.
All right, well, sit tight. We are coming back with the roundtable again after the break and another of the state's most divisive issues, Florida's abortion restrictions, right now in the hands of the Florida Supreme Court. Now in the court's hands, Florida Supreme Court heard arguments Friday in the case that determines whether the state's new abortion restrictions are legal and enforceable. The plaintiffs that brought the case, Planned Parenthood of Southwest and Central Florida, argue that the state's right to privacy in the state constitution covers the right to privately choose to terminate a pregnancy. Florida's lawyers argue otherwise. Back to the roundtable now. We have a lawyer amongst us, Loreal, Arscott. So the right to privacy in Florida's constitution, that is the question, full stop. What do you think is going to happen there?
So it's going to be interesting to see what the court does with this. The right to privacy as it relates to abortion rights has been codified in Florida's judicial precedent for a very long time. The Constitution is very clear. We have a right to privacy public intrusion specifically. So what I thought was interesting when I looked at the court's oral arguments is the court started out within the first couple of minutes into the questioning discussing standing. Every lawyer knows that's not a good place to start. That means the court is questioning whether or not the plaintiffs even have the power or the position to bring the lawsuit.
And they decided that they did.
Well, the jury's still out on that, as they say.
Oh, okay.
The court is still deliberating that one. And they were hammering both sides as to that particular issue.
And they moved on to an argument then, and this is really central, if they decide that the plaintiffs have standing, in other words, they have a complaint to take against the state with the 15-week abortion ban, they moved quickly on the enshrined in the Florida Constitution, 1980, the right to privacy. Is it informational privacy only, or is it decisional privacy as well? And that's the real kind of fork in the road that the Supreme Court justices are going to have to decide.
Is there a prior case that speaks to that?
There is. I'm
Please,
sorry.
no,
just-
you're
you
the
just know
lawyer.
stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know stuff. I just watched the oral arguments and did a little research. So the court was very clear that all of the prior precedent protected that decisional right to privacy and actually questioned the state as to why the state is deviating from its previous positions and now putting the tooth in the informational privacy position.
I would be very surprised if the Supreme Court does not overturn the prior court. So let's just a few dates. 1973, Roe v. Wade. 1980, Florida's constitutional amendment, right to privacy. If you look in the news clips from the time, there's no mention of abortion.
1989, there was a case where they read into the right to privacy.
Correct,
in the
but that's
Constitution
after it's
abortion-
passed in 1980. But at the time in 1980, people aren't talking about abortion. According to the news clips, John Coriel, one of the Supreme Court justices, specifically zeroed in on that. 89, there's the ruling. So Carlos Muñiz, the Chief Justice, all of these justices, they're very conservative. They're going to take an originalist position here. They're going to see that in 1980 this discussion really didn't happen, although it is true at the time the right to privacy was discussed in regards to abortion. But in the context of Florida's voters at the time, it doesn't appear in the media at all.
And now it's all about the media because of the past two sessions.
I think it's important to recognize, too, while there is a right to privacy, there's no right to an abortion in the Constitution of the state of Florida. And so people need to recognize, too, that up until now, this has been something that has been on the books. The 15-week abortion ban.
Does that
was
matter?
on the
Because
books.
there's if you look at pregnancy termination is a health issue, considered a health issue to many people. And the Constitution doesn't spell out what health issues are allowed. So does that matter?
That's why we have a legislature, and the legislature voted on this issue. We had an election in 2022, and the people understood that abortion was on the ballot. It was something that was discussed at the debates for governor, in the legislature, all throughout our county, throughout our state. And people understood what they were voting for, in my opinion, and they voted for Republican policies. They voted to make Florida more pro-life. They recognized that this was on the ballot. Democrats campaigned on this issue.
Well, just to be very clear, the 15-week abortion ban at the time, 96% of abortions happen in Florida within 15 weeks. DeSantis then gets elected. He then does a 6-week abortion ban, which is essentially a complete abortion ban when you talk to women.
Under a much lower profile, which was interesting.
He ducked the question on the
Yeah.
campaign trail whenever he
Yeah.
was asked about it.
Yeah.
He's like, oh yeah, I'll sign something maybe, but ducked it.
And
this is a complete deviation from prior common law, right? So the case law clearly protected that right to an abortion and the right to privacy.
That's true.
This is a complete deviation. We've never seen that before. And what's interesting is when we talk about appointing our judges, right, with some of the main characteristics that they look for is whether or not the appointee, potential appointee, is in line with the governor's ideology and whether or not there are judicial conservatives, essentially. So yet we see a Supreme Court that's full of judicial activists, apparently, but if back in the day, if they voiced that opinion, they would not have been appointed to begin with.
well, you know what's really interesting? One of the Justice Kennedy, his wife is a state rep, Jennifer Kennedy, who authored or co-sponsored the 6-week restriction.
Yeah, it shows just how many intersections there are between lawmaking and law interpretation, certainly in the state of Florida. I think another key piece that you brought up earlier that I think can't be underestimated, which is if they overturn, or rather if they upheld the 15-week ban, it does overturn precedents, and it does. And there had been some questions from the justices.
The stare decisis.
Decisis, right? About what the essentially what the waterfall effect is going to be if they take just this informational privacy interpretation of the Florida Constitution.
The other interesting point, Glenna, is 2 of the justices have a history of being a part of the anti-abortion movement. So when we say elections have consequences, that's not just a tagline. That shows you that you are electing people, judges, who bring to the bench their life experiences, their political ideologies.
Of course, conceptually in all issues.
Absolutely.
But you're an attorney, you know that that's not how cases are decided. Cases are to be decided on the contextual limits of the law, the
One
four
would
corners
assume so.
of the law.
One would assume so.
Right.
But as an attorney, I'm also aware that judges bring to the bench their own life experiences. That rosy colored glasses is always colored. It's not a clear focus on just what the law says.
So
that's the issue.
There's
That's
a lot
why
of red
it's
glasses on the Supreme Court
a lot.
right now.
That's
too.
why it's important for the judges to accurately reflect the community that they serve. And when we talk about that and we talk about diversity, we're not just talking about sex and race, right? We're talking about socioeconomic diversity. We're talking about political diversity. The ideology of the Florida Supreme Court as it stands, with those 5 out of the 7 justices that are extremely conservative and appointed by DeSantis, does not reflect the entire state of Florida.
And, you know, on segueing out of that, there is a citizens initiative underway. That's a heavy lift, but it does look like this group may have abortion rights on the November ballot.
Unless the Supreme Court cancels it.
Oh,
That part.
okay. Full stop right there. Let's table this for next time, and we're going to move on. But you're going to come back in a little bit. But next is the future of low-rise Art Deco Ocean Drive. Big new towers with affordable apartments. The first steps are actually underway and already destined for a fight. You'll be back to talk about that. But first, the attorney involved. Stay tuned. We are back with the Roundtable. We have Tom Hudson, Loreal Arscott, Marc Caputo, Kevin Cooper. We were watching the last segment. We are going right to the economics guy. Not too many numbers,
No,
it's television.
no, but this is a fascinating test case of this state law, right? I mean, this is going to put the Doral case notwithstanding. This is Miami Beach, right? This is the diamond, the epicenter of development, and of course, a focus of a lot of Florida and elsewhere. But in order for this project on paper to make economic sense, that's why they need 30 stories, right? So you've got the affordable housing piece, you have the high-end restaurant. The affordable housing piece are going to be rental apartments as opposed to condominiums. But in order for this to happen, that's why they need the square footage to go up. And that's why they're trying to, frankly, put this new state law to the test as it relates to being able to step into the zoning argument.
Because we really didn't get into the mechanics of the law with Alex, but if a developer makes 40% of this building affordable housing, then the local people can't say no to the development.
And this is what, there's like a pox on all their houses, or housing, if you will.
Is the 11th plague?
Like, let's face it, the Florida legislature doesn't really care about affordable housing. They care about developers and development, though.
Yeah, that's harsh.
Okay, yeah, having spent 20 years covering the Florida legislature, I will
defer,
adhere to my position. And local government, which is always like, oh, affordable housing, they never really provide it because they need to change the zoning by and large to allow for more density. So you've now got 2 bad faith actors, and then they meet on Ocean Drive, where they've decided to tell the Clevelander, hey, you can't be a bar. And so what you heard from the lawyer here was like, oh, okay, we can't have our bar anymore? Okay, screw you. We're going to build something that you don't like, which you say you like, because it has affordable housing.
Well, what affordable housing is workforce housing. The people who work on Ocean Drive can live. Okay, I've got the numbers. Forgive me, it's television. I can't have a lot of numbers. But $122,000 annual income is the income that is considered the income that would be
The threshold.
a threshold that would make you affordable housing worthy. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's not poverty level.
That's definitely not low income, right?
So what's wrong with beautiful housing for people who work?
I think the mayor of Miami Beach and the commissioners are going to have a tough time explaining that to the city. So the thing that's interesting about this statute is it absolutely takes the power out of the local municipalities. That's exactly what preemption is, right? But this is a move from Tallahassee that's been happening a long time. Many of the municipalities have been watching slowly but surely as how the legislature is taking the power out of the hands of local government and is preempting, for lack of a better word, that authority.
So is that, I mean, Kevin, is that problematic? Because you know, some in the state will tell you, well, maybe we know better and for the people, but local government is who represents the people on the ground. You know, why shouldn't Miami Beach have a say in what their zoning is on any particular block?
We haven't heard from the city on this topic yet.
Oh, no,
Oh,
we've
we've
heard from
heard.
the mayor, yes. You may
I
not
haven't
watch, yeah, you haven't heard. Well, let me just fill you in good faith, because the mayor's against it and said he will do everything to fight it.
Then why doesn't he work to clean up Ocean Drive? Because Ocean Drive has experienced just this year, there were 2 shootings in 36 hours. People were literally killed on Ocean Drive this year. I saw a video on Instagram where they were washing the blood off the sidewalk while a walking tour of tourists walked by. I think it's absurd what's going on on Ocean Drive.
So
and so if they
connect
want to
that
protect,
with the 30-story building for affordable
well, you
housing.
heard from the developer. He said Miami Beach Ocean Drive has become unbearable. He said that word, unbearable. And so,
As a business.
well,
Because of the
because
government,
of the
actually.
situation of what's going on.
But it's
there.
because of the government actually trying to stop the shootings, though. That's the irony.
Then maybe they're going about it the wrong way. But I don't think there's been a cohesive effort on behalf of the city to really fix this issue. And now they've punished everybody except for the people who are committing the crimes.
You know, what, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, the real problem that the city had, just to bring it back to my remarks earlier, is they haven't really done a good job allowing for more affordable housing. And now someone's calling their bluff, and now the city's against it.
Yeah, and that's true across Florida. Certainly true across South
totally.
Florida, right? Where we and as a country we have prioritized single-family home development at the expense of density, and we're seeing density around Miami-Dade County finally build up along some of the transit corridors, for instance. That only took 40 years for Miami-Dade County to realize, oh, train stations, people like to live near transportation.
And you still got to get back and forth from the train station.
It'd be nice to have some more trains.
That's right.
You know?
Let me ask you this. Did you read the bill? I don't want to put you on the spot if you haven't read the whole. It's a 95 pages.
Oh, it's 95 pages.
You read it, didn't you?
Not all 95
Oh, okay.
pages.
So you're kind of an overachiever.
I have a
anyway.
life sometimes.
But here's
Glenn.
in the context of the bill, it keeps referring to county. County can't do this. County can't do that. Does that mean the cities can't either, or is that it all encompassing, or is that a word that we can play with?
The cities can't either. I thought I captured some of the language here, but it says local governments. So local government's inability to further regulate zoning, density, et cetera. So to the point earlier, the local government, Miami Beach, should be best primed to dictate what they believe the standards of beauty should be for their community, what they believe those zoning standards should be. That's the whole purpose of us having local government.
Yeah.
I shouldn't come from Miami Gardens and tell Miami Beach what I think should be proper for the Art Deco district. The residents of Miami Beach should speak to that. It's kind of difficult for Tallahassee to then come in and altruistically, paternalistically, whichever word we want to give them, and
Solving
then
the affordable housing crisis in
that's the catch, because that sounds really great on paper.
You know, interesting that you compare cities, because you know, South Florida is growing into a much more urban area than it ever has been. In urban areas, they have mixed use. In New
Right.
York, there's the businesses and people live on top of them.
Yeah.
Is that what we're destined for?
Well, it's called infill, right? We've
Infill.
pushed up all the way against the Everglades. We can't build east anymore because of the ocean. There's no room to move south. There's no room to move north. We're squeezed here in this little slice of paradise that we call home. So you've got to build up. And so that's what developers have been looking at. But the price of the land itself, that is what is driving the expensive houses.
Unless they change the urban development boundary, and that's a whole other
And push it
roundtable.
to the Everglades.
Just give them a few minutes.
Gotta go. Tom Hudson, Loreal, Arscott, Marc Caputo, Kevin Cooper. I love you all. Great roundtable, and I value your time, and I love that you come in and sit with us on a Sunday morning.
Thank you.
Thank
We'll
you
be
for
back.
having us.